many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
To Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.TV. Thank you for joining me this evening. We're going to kind of dive into freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and we'll kind of dive into a few things here when it comes to that. And, there's people that say, well, there's a limit on speech, but you start drawing a line on freedom of speech, the line will continually get pushed. There's a reason for speech being free. Speech does not abridge someone's right. You go, well, someone's speech could make someone angry and go do something. Well, just because someone, even if they say to go do something, you still have the freedom to make the choice whether or not to do something. So I think that putting that line on freedom of speech is, even though it might be done for a good moral reason, it doesn't come out in reality like you might think it in theory. It doesn't end up working out that way. It just continually gets pushed. Well, that person offends me with their speech. Outlaw it. And that's really what it comes down to. I have one here. It's the Ron Paul Liberty Report, and I kind of want to go ahead and dive into this because it actually kind of gets into the First Amendment. Of course, Twitter is something that's global, but if our country believes in this, freedom of speech and freedom of religion, then we can't go, well, it's okay for our citizens, but other people around the world shouldn't have the same thing. And vice versa, they still go after us. But this Ron Paul Liberty Report, should tweeting be a capital offense? The U.S. has assassinated at least one pro-ISIS Twitter user. Is this going too far, or should people be killed for what they tweet? Let's go ahead and dive into this.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams. Good to see you today, Daniel.
Good morning, Dr. Paul.
We would like to talk a little bit today about an article that appeared and a story on ABC. And it has to do with the expansion on the war on terror. I guess that's what they're after. But the title is a little bit threatening. It's a debate now within the government officials and former military people, but it's ongoing. And to me, it's a follow-up on the assassination of al-Awlaki. That happened, and we know that story pretty well. But now they're talking this up, the necessity for this. It says, debate among U.S. officials over whether to kill over Twitter accounts. And this is scary stuff. And if people are told, well, yeah, they might be conspiring to kill people and doing things, and say, we will have a program that we kill them before they kill anybody else. But it's not quite so simple. Matter of fact, on al-Awlaki, al-Awlaki was never convicted or even charged with a violent crime. And his son and a nephew, I believe, were assassinated as well, and they were teenagers. So this is dangerous business. And I just wonder, what could this lead to? This, I think, could be very, very bad for the whole principle that they're approaching where the speech is the crime. Yeah. Don't approve of the speech, so you're on the assassination list.
And it's a delicate issue, and this came to us by way of antiwar.com, by the way, it was an ABC News story. And the ABC News talked about the debate over killing Twitter tough guys. There are a lot of people that have armchair warriors that have taken to Twitter to support ISIS or Al-Qaeda or what have you. And the issue is, at what point do they get targeted? And especially when you talk about Americans, the article goes over this young fellow, Junaid Hussain, who the U.S. claimed was a senior propagandist for ISIS, but also pointing out he was only 9 years old when the U.S. invaded Iraq.
Oh, boy.
So and he's also a British citizen, which makes it interesting as well. But the U.S. has bragged recently about going in and taking him out in a drone strike, this young fellow.
There's been arguments that the nature of war will change and is changing, and we're in the midst of it. At the moment, we don't foresee, massive amounts of troops with tanks marching across Europe. We don't think World War I in the same manner is going to break out World War II, and even Vietnam and Korea, hopefully not that. But there's still a lot of war and a lot of killing, and now the battlefield keeps expanding. Nobody knows where the battlefield is. Nobody knows who the enemy is. Nobody knows when the war is over. So to me, it looks like this is part of this process. So if you're on Twitter, you become the enemy because you might say something, which I think is really embarking on a very dangerous policy.
And this is also kind of an age-old thing. There were people jailed during World War I. We think of Eugene Debs, jailed because he didn't support the war effort and tried to encourage people to avoid the draft. And you have that. You've had it through the Cold War as well. And this is a continuation. I think it might be more dangerous in a way, partly because of technology. People have access to Twitter. It's used much more frequently. And so, as you say, the battlefield expands to every corner of our lives, even our private lives.
And I think they're trying to make war more sterile. First you steal the money and close down their banks, and then you put on sanctions. And then you come along and you use drones. You don't send a total army in, although we do that too, and bombs. But we send in the drones and no boots on the ground. This sort of thing. So the neocons have a field day over this because they say you're right. Because we need those troops on the ground. We need thousands of troops to invade these countries. We need to have killed Assad a long time ago. And we need to have stayed with many, many more. 1 million Iraqi dead wasn't enough. So this whole thing sort of falls into supporting the warmongers rather than them wake up and say, hey, we don't need to be doing this. I see it sometimes as not a war on terror. Most of this is a war on our liberties, and this is an introduction. It's always for good. We're only going to watch the Twitter accounts of those people who are about to blow up something. And I just don't believe that for a minute, because I think they, when they do get information, they either misplace it or they don't understand it. They certainly don't have any understanding of what's happening in the Middle East.
Well, certainly it seems to be when in doubt, overkill. The use of signature strikes, as we've talked about on this program before, where it's not targeting an individual, but targeting behavior and a set of attributes, young male of fighting age, etc. So when in doubt, overstrike. And we notice in the article there's an appropriately named General Barbero, who I think encapsulated this. He said, If we have insufficient intel on the network, you attack what you can.
Yeah, boy. And also, what's going on here is maybe out of desperation that they've been fighting ISIS, and everything they do, ISIS gets bigger. Matter of fact, in many ways, we've created this monster. I mean, we can go through that history. Iraq didn't have it, and the Mujahideen turned it into the Taliban, and all this. So then we just send more and more, but not enough, and therefore things get worse. And so now they have to change their tactics. ISIS is not fading away. ISIS is doing pretty well with our methods right now, and training troops and all the silliness and all the successes. And now I don't even think the American people should trust our own government as what they're doing, because everything they seem to be doing in the history we get, the recent history and revelation of the security report showing that they had information that if we did what we did in Syria, it would create this monster and this problem here, and they just totally ignored
it anyway.
It.
It's as you say, it's desperation, but it's also ignoring some advice of some great strategists, like think about Sun Tzu, who advised you to know yourself and know your enemy. And here's a former Pentagon advisor who talks about, so the English-speaking ISIS guy that it's removed by a drone strike could equal 1,000 potential fighters. So take out this guy before. But what they don't realize that's absolutely empirically true is that drone strikes breed radicalization. You kill one with a drone, and two will come to take the place.
What about the one that said something, shoot off your mouth all you want, eventually we'll kill you?
Yes, exactly. An unnamed counterterrorism official. Shoot off your mouth all you want. Eventually we're going to come and kill you.
Free speech. Shout off all you want, but we're going to control your Twitter account.
But this is a mentality, isn't it? It's almost a mental illness.
When we talk about our foreign policy, it's obvious that we hear from both sides, and there's some criticism because the attitude from some is, well, these are bad guys and you have to do it. But I wonder if, and a lot of these will be young people too, and they'll say, well, when it gets so bad, you have to kill these people. But what happens when they realize what this invasion and monitoring of Twitter means, when you might use words inadvertently and have no plan, no verification that you did anything or planning to do anything, but you have said the wrong words? I mean, you could have somebody on your doorstep, and we've heard stories like that already. The FBI shows up, and we want to know who you are and what you're doing.
The whole thing reminds us of the Vietnam body count. How many people we took out? We take out 10 senior leaders, never realizing that the ideology is where we lost in the battlefield. And your famous quote from the general.
When you think about the goal, especially even before 9/11, but 9/11 spurred it on, and that was the remaking of the Middle East. And they've remade the Middle East. And, of course, to our detriment, to the detriment of the world, we end up with migration problems. We end up with financial problems. But still, the one thing that I get concerned about the most is the attack on our freedom of expression. And this says that you got to be careful. If you say the right things, you have freedom of expression. And I used to sort of joke about the First Amendment. It wasn't written so we could talk about the weather. It was written to talk about controversial things, and this doesn't even give you a chance. This whole idea that an Iraqi or another citizen, British or American now, they don't get charged, and there's no prosecution. They're not guilty of anything. They just know that they're probably bad people, and that to me is so dangerous because I find so many answers in the cause of liberty, whether it's in the marketplace or financial markets and monetary system, or even defining marriage and things like this. You don't need the government to do these things. It's when you have all this mischief involved in dealing with the minutiae. But this is one minutia that I hope everybody wakes up and says that, well, okay, maybe we shouldn't do it if they haven't been charged and we don't know exactly what they did, and we don't even say what they did. Maybe at least back off a little bit. I mean, they're not about to invade this country. The invasion of this country is the invasion of our own government on our own liberties. That's where the real threat is. It's not coming from outsiders. So the people who wanted to do us harm, I think we've satisfied them quite well doing it to ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Obviously, I feel very concerned about this whole idea that people in the administration, or at least have been in the administration, are talking about looking at Twitter accounts and assassinating people for what they've said. And if that isn't an attack on freedom of speech, I don't know what is. But people have to realize that in this country, supposedly, before anybody's guilty of anything, they have to be charged and they have to give a fair hearing. Under certain circumstances, you might modify it, but not to the modification of saying anybody using a Twitter account is a potential enemy of the state, and therefore the government has the right to go and assassinate them. I mean, it's been done on several occasions. It's probably been done many times that we don't know about, but here it's coming out blatantly because the policies that we have in the Middle East are a total failure, and they know about it, and they just think, well, we're going to attack ISIS, by watching what they're doing on the Twitter account. Well, they do a lot better by quit financing the various groups and financing them to the point of them ending up getting our weapons, training people who turn on us and kill our supporters. So I would say it's time to change the policy. It's the policy that is sick and needs fixed. It's not the American people's liberties that are the problem. The real problem is the authoritarian approach of an interventionist government, both in an economic sense and in a sense of maintaining an empire and imposing our will in these many, many countries around the world. And the sooner we do that, the better. Then I don't believe that we would have to monitor everybody's Twitter account and find out what they might be saying. I would say that liberty is the goal that we should have, and the sooner we understand that and work to that goal, the better off we'll be. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Liberty Report, and please come back soon.
Ron Paul Liberty Report on YouTube. Go check it out and subscribe. Now, this is one thing that I think Rand Paul has right when it comes to the difference between foreign policy, national security, and the NSA and the spying that's going on. How, one side they want to take your liberty, tell you don't have freedom, and on the other side they're giving weapons to groups they know are loosely affiliated with a lot of the terrorist organizations. They kind of rely on those terrorist organizations to help with these revolutions, and the ones that are truly against those terrorist organizations are usually infiltrated. They get all this weaponry, and then they're wiped out. So, you have so many issues that end up popping up with a lot of this. And they tell you give up your liberties and we'll make sure you're secure. Kind of the same when they were wanting to go after guns, and then it comes out about Fast and Furious that, oh yeah, they gave drug cartels basically weapons. Allowed for these guns to be bought and taken across the border and used by drug cartels to kill people in the towns and cities of Mexico that drug cartel was basically in control of. Also, Border Patrol agents. But you shouldn't have privacy. You shouldn't have guns. What do you need an assault rifle for? Well, because you just armed Mexican cartels with them. You just armed people like ISIS with them. We know that criminals on our streets have illegally purchased and possessed firearms because government's running around with crazy ass technology that including drones that have the potential to wipe us out anyways. why do you want us to get rid of our guns? And their excuse is the normal BS. So you kills people. And you see the list of things that come after guns and, death relation. Again, it's an attack on your freedom. Spying on you and then charging you if they basically disagree or think that your tweets are helping terrorism. And, then that starts becoming a broad term, definitely when they start playing domestic terrorism. And there's such a long list with it. Then you have this Kim Davis thing going on. And I think that there were ways that it could have been handled a lot better. Even firing her. Because your right to freedom of religion, you can't also abridge another person's right to that same thing. And in that public setting, you do that. So I think there were a lot better ways of handling it than arresting her. But then, of course, we see Huckabee and Cruz visiting her in jail. And then we have all this media coverage of Huckabee at this rally. I don't know if I have the clip right present here. I probably find it pretty quick, though. Just give me a second here. Probably find it pretty quick here. Maybe. I don't think I have the whole clip here. But Huckabee talked there, and a lot of people were like, well, where was Ted Cruz? Ted Cruz was talking, visited her in jail. Where was Ted Cruz? Well, Truth to Media posted this. Huckabee campaign blocks Cruz from media at Kim Davis rally. Rowan County, Kentucky clerk Kim Davis won the attention and admiration of at least two GOP presidential candidates in the wake of her arrest and incarceration for refusing to issue marriage licenses to homosexual couples. United States Senator Ted Cruz and former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee both attempted to use Davis's incident as a soapbox for their campaigns. However, Huckabee came out on top. On Tuesday, both candidates were slated to appear at Davis's release, where supporters held a rally. Appearing with Davis on stage and speaking on her behalf to the media, Huckabee stole the show as Cruz was seemingly nowhere to be found. Quote, "If you have to put someone in jail, let me go," Huckabee said to a roaring crowd. The founders never gave one branch of government the power to make the law. Every one of us will have to decide whether we want to keep this great country or whether we want to surrender and sacrifice it to tyranny. It wasn't Cruz's choice to remain off stage and out of the spotlight. Much to his displeasure, a Huckabee campaign staffer physically blocked Cruz from even speaking to the media in order to ensure Huckabee remained in the spotlight and the Davis soapbox was his own. As noted by the New York Times, Cruz kept an uncharacteristically low profile and remained off to the side. Cruz and Huckabee both saw a minor jump in the polls after the first official Republican nominee debate on Fox News. The next debate, where both candidates have earned a slot on the main stage, will be broadcast by CNN on September 16th. So, even, think of Huckabee what you want, but that's kind of a little shady there. Now, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but this out of Infowars.com. Video: Oath Keepers vow to guard Kim Davis from further imprisonment. Quote, we believe Federal District Court Judge David Bunning grossly overstepped his bounds. Stuart Rhodes and national and local leadership of the Oath Keepers organization released video Thursday vowing to protect Christian Roane County Court clerk from further arrests. Oath Keepers offer of protection for embattled clerk Kim Davis. And it says here, Stuart Rhodes released a statement. We believe Federal District Court Judge David Bunning grossly overstepped his bounds and violated Mrs. Davis's due process rights, and in particular her right to a jury trial. This judge has assumed onto himself not just the power of all three branches of government, but has also taken on the powers of judge, jury, and executioner. What matters to us is not whether you agree with her position on gay marriage or her decision not to issue marriage licenses. What matters is that the judge is violating the Constitution and his anger and desire to punish her for going against his will. We are already being subjected to an unconstitutional imperial presidency that grew exponentially under both Bush and Obama, expanding the claimed war powers of the president to swallow up our Bill of Rights and circumvent jury trial. The result is an executive branch that claims the absurd power to declare any American an unlawful combatant on the say-so of the president alone. Now we see the rise of imperial judiciary that not only legislates from the bench, but is attempting to expand their contempt power to likewise swallow up our Bill of Rights and circumvent jury trial. Both methods are used to allow the powerful office holder to merely point his finger and have his opponent thrown behind bars without a grand jury indictment and without being found guilty by a jury of their peers. No innocent until proven guilty before a jury, just guilty because the leader says so. This is a dictatorship, whether done by a president or by a judge. No one man should have that kind of power in his hands alone to decide guilt and impose a sentence of indefinite detention under our Constitution. That dictatorial power does not exist. We must stand against this, and so we will protect her and prevent it from happening again. Stuart Rhodes. So, we'll see how far that goes now that we have Huckabee guarding Kim Davis from anyone. It'll definitely be interesting. Okay. Give me a second here. Now, I have one here from AMTV. Al-Qaeda calls for lone wolf attacks on business elite. And we've kind of seen a attack on corporations, which in a lot of ways is justified. But we're also seeing an attack on smaller companies, local-based companies, a lot of local-owned, real small, family-owned factories. Not understanding the pressures they're under, being a local, non-national, international type company. They're just, small, local owned. But there's something going on really globally, and it's to bleed the rest of the wealth out of nations. Now, when this talks about business elite, when Al-Qaeda called for this, I believe it was calling out Bloomberg, Rockefeller, and other people like that. Now, that seems fishy in itself, only because, well, we know these people to be corrupt type people. But what we also know is, well, if they call out for this, the security around these type of people is going to skyrocket. That, I think, is what we should look into. Is this going to just be nothing more than an excuse to justify extra protections around these business elite? Well, if you have an economic crash coming, I think that does. But this from AMTV, Christopher Green, Al-Qaeda calls for lone wolf attacks on business elite.
I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. It is Thursday, September 10th, 2015, one day before September 11th. Ooh, so scary. I'm so scared. Hillary Clinton apologized, said she was sorry for committing criminal acts regarding her emails on the Ellen DeGeneres show. And this was a response from the GOP field. Did you see that? There was like poop and everything flying everywhere. It's funny, I was watching a TV show called Madam Secretary on Netflix, which is a study in propaganda in and of itself, because it basically features Hillary Clinton as this good person. She's like called into the position of Secretary of State, and the mainstream media is like working against her, and they really frame her in this positive light, which we know is opposite from the truth. You know, the fact that Hillary Clinton had to apologize on the Ellen DeGeneres show just shows how devastating the criminal act and acts that she's committed have been on her campaign run. I mean, it legitimately might have ended her officially.
I used a personal email account. It was allowed by the State Department, but I should have used two different accounts. I made a mistake, and I'm sorry for all the confusion.
She might be finished, which is a huge surprise. Now, of course, none of us are dumb enough to not know that the Republican Party and the GOP field is probably behind this attack, but it still doesn't mean that Hillary Clinton isn't a criminal. both her and her husband. I mean, a history of criminal activity. And again, that response from the GOP field, epic. I've never seen anything like it before in my entire life. Also, Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda, allegedly put out in their magazine Inspire, I think that's also like a gay and lesbian magazine here in the United States, put out a warning or issued a warning to attack, on the heels of September 11th, which I'm sure, again, this is just propaganda, to attack prominent business figures, people like Warren Buffett or the Koch brothers. Sheldon Adelson was mentioned. Ben Bernanke, economist, was mentioned, who asked his name to be removed. You see how they're positioning the elites in this country as the victim, when in reality, it's the American people that are the victim? I mean, is Warren Buffett really a victim? I mean, he cozied up to Barack Obama throughout the 2008-2009 financial crisis and basically approved of the largest bailouts in the history of the world. And people call him the greatest capitalist. Really, Warren Buffett is just a PR stuntman. He's a professional propagandist himself. And now Inspire magazine, which is allegedly written by Al-Qaeda, but really probably written by Al-Qaeda, is targeting and urging and promoting lone wolf attacks on these individuals. Also, the Walmart heirs were mentioned. So interesting as we approach September 11th that these elites that, again, push bailouts down our throat and that are basically just ripping all of us off. People like Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan Chase, who wasn't mentioned, who probably should have been, are now being positioned by the mainstream media as the victims. When the real victims, again, and the real victim is this country, is the American people. I talked about yesterday this refugee crisis, the truth behind it, hundreds of thousands of people moving into Europe. So again, it provides a smokescreen for further integration of this new world order, one world government. People want to know why this is happening. Well, it radically transforms the voting population and then pushes everybody as the system collapses on itself to the new world order agenda. Again, it's not what people say, it's what they do. Actions speak louder than words. And tensions are rising. Reports came out today and yesterday that Russia is increasing their military buildup in Syria. They're actually operating from an airfield, and troops are fighting along the Bashar al-Assad government. So we have all these tensions. We have the BRICS nations, Russia and China, namely, supporting Syria, while at the same time the United States has launched these aggressive propaganda campaigns to take out Assad and to potentially collapse Syria. Again, I talked about this yesterday. We've seen this in Libya. We've seen this in Iraq. We've seen this in Afghanistan. We see this across the entire Middle East. That's why the Levant, the greater Levant, has been grossly destabilized. It's a cesspool and a bloodbath and arguably has more radical and dangerous terrorist elements than what we saw 10 years ago with the fomentation creation of Al-Qaeda. And we have global superpowers battling out. Also did a very important video a few videos ago, the real reason Obama went to Alaska. And since that report, the Los Angeles Times, I believe it was, reported that the United States is beefing up their intelligence operations in the Arctic. Isn't that interesting? See, it wasn't about climate change at all. That's just what they were showing you on Obama's White House YouTube channel. Again, not what he says in front of a camera, it's what they're actually doing behind the scenes.
It is beautiful.
Also in the news, according to a recent CNN ORC poll, Donald Trump has now taken the lead with a 30% majority across the GOP field, followed by Ben Carson, the two anti-politicians, the two non-politicians. You see how Americans have woken up to the fact that these career politicians are criminals? People like Hillary Clinton and her husband, they're just tired of it. People like George W. Bush and his dynasty in their family dynasty of presidents, one after another. People have woken up to the fact that these career politicians are what are driving this country into the ground. So it's interesting with Donald Trump, he's got a 30% majority, clear majority in the GOP field, I think followed by Ben Carson, another non-anti-politician, I believe somewhere in the ballpark of 16%. We have Ted Cruz at 8%, and then the rest of the field has 3% or less. This includes people like Rand Paul. I mean, this is stunning. Who would have thunk that Rand Paul would have 3% or less in the polls leading up to the 2016 presidential election? It just goes to show you, and I'm actually like Rand Paul. I liked his father a lot better. I like the constitutional principles that they're fighting for, his filibuster on drone strikes, etc. But it shows, honestly, it's been a complete failure. I mean, 3% or less of the popular vote just goes to show you that they've failed. I mean, the campaign largely, Rand Paul's campaign, has failed. The two anti-politicians, Donald Trump and Ben Carson, the brain surgeon leading the polls. And it really is a testament to how angry Americans are, how angry our population is, how people like Donald Trump are able to play into the rhetoric and tap into the vein of the anger that is boiling here among the American people. Again, we know that these career politicians are criminals. We know people like Hillary Clinton, Republicans and Democrats know this, know that they've been ripping us off, committing criminal acts, burning their email servers, right around the time Benghazi Gate occurred.
Get up and fight for what you believe in, no matter how hard it is. I'm going to fight for all the people like my mother who need somebody in their corner. And they need a leader who cares about them again.
We know all of this. We know that we're being lied to. We know that our government can't be trusted. We know that this system is an illusion, that the constitutional republic as it was founded is no longer. But this is a more looks like a plutocracy where we have elites that are now being portrayed as victims in the mainstream media, according to the recent edition of Inspire magazine. Again, nothing has changed in thousands of years. We've reverted back to where we were before. Kings and queens, maybe you want to call it a plutocracy, with the peasants and this trickle-down economics, it isn't working. And it's exactly why they're slamming immigrants by the droves, not just here in the United States of America, crossing the border from Mexico and Central America through Mexico into the United States, but also in Europe, because it forces this New World Order agenda. It forces this collapse. It forces this global integration. So the elites can provide that solution on a silver platter to you and say that they saved the day, that this is the reason why we need to join the world, that we need to unify people of all races and colors, refugees, and citizens of their respective countries. Again, this plays into the economic and political model, the agenda behind the scenes that is being pushed by these criminals that do not represent us and do not represent the people. I'm Christopher Green. Get this video out everywhere, make it viral, hard-hitting it in your face, and click the link below to support our sponsor.
Christopher Green, AMTV. Check him out, subscribe, check out his other videos. Now, you know, something that a lot of people also fail to realize is you also create a situation where you have ability to, we'll give you amnesty if you join the military. Because what do we have right now? We have a lot of people not willing to join the military. The ones that are usually younger guys that come from military families. We don't have a big surge in people wanting to join the military. A lot of young people are pretty aware of, you know, all this, you know, going on over in the Middle East and our involvement in Ukraine, and they look at the military negatively, which I think in a way you should look at the policies that we're using the military for. A lot of the young ones that are joining come from military families, and you know, you're fighting for freedom when you come from a military family. My grandfather was in World War II. You know, it's one of those things, you do it for a good reason. The problem is our government's not using them for good reasons. It's not really supporting freedom. We have a situation, though, where there is a lot of anti-war sentiment, even though since the left is in power, we don't see the grassroots movement, which a lot of it was more community organizing when it came to those anti-war movements. It was more political, not actually anti-war. Hence why you don't see them out in the streets still. But you still see it, the anti-war sentiment when it comes to when the U.S. wanted to get involved in Syria originally and basically pull off another Libya and Syria with Assad. And most people were not backing that. It was not something popular. And you're kind of seeing that among a lot of demographics. Kind of tired of war. So we have, I don't even know what the number is right now of illegal aliens in here. Gives them a good opportunity to have more soldiers for missions. And I think that's something that I think people should watch out for, definitely with this election process going on, and see if that ends up entering any of the campaigns. It wouldn't surprise me if you start hearing that come out of one of the candidates' mouths. We have this Middle East problem, the ISIS problem. If they want to become citizens, we should make them join the military for amnesty. Talking about the election, Rick Perry dropped out. This coming out of Politico.com, Rick Perry abandons presidential run. I step aside knowing our party is in good hands, the former Texas governor says. After months of struggling to gain traction for suspending his campaign, becoming the first Republican candidate to drop out of the crowded race for White House. We have a tremendous field, the best in a generation. So I step aside knowing our party is in good hands, Perry said during an appearance before a conservative conference in St. Louis. Perry, who has made his mark on the political landscape as the longest-serving governor in Texas history, in recent weeks wrestled with fundraising woes and an inability to break out of the bottom tier during his second presidential run. I share this news with no regrets, Perry said, according to the prepared text of his remarks. It has been a privilege and honor to travel this country, to speak with the American people about their hopes and dreams, to see a sense of optimism prevalent despite a season of cynical politics. And as I approach the next chapter of my life, I do so with the love of my life by my side, Anita Perry. We have our house in the country. We have 2 beautiful children, 2 adorable grandchildren, 4 dogs, and the best sunset from our front porch that you could ever imagine. Life is good, and I'm a blessed man. Perry began alerting donors and supporters on Thursday that he was planning to drop out, said Doug Deason, son of Texas billionaire Darwin Deason, who gave $5 million to Perry's super PAC. The Deasons received a call from Perry on Thursday alerting them to his move, and they plan to watch the field play out further before committing to any other candidates. Perry entered the 2016 race determined to rehabilitate his image after a disastrous 2012 bid. This time around, he sought to broadcast a serious, sometimes wonkish understanding of policy issues, particularly foreign policy, despite demonstrating new depth along with strong retail politicking skills and the ability to deliver a fiery speech. He was never able to repair his reputation after his first presidential bid, which he entered as a frontrunner but which rapidly imploded amid a series of embarrassing missteps. This time around, he ran into campaign cash flow problems and at one point this summer stopped paying his staff, resulting in an exodus after the campaign gave permission for aides to look elsewhere, and he foundered in the polls, not qualifying for the main stage in the first GOP debate last month after stressing the need to be there. A super PAC effort run by Austin Barber, an influential Mississippi Republican operative, as well was well funded and was running an independent ground game on behalf of Perry in Iowa, putting him in a better organizational position than many of the other candidates who remain in the field, including Jim Gilmore and George Pataki. But the effort couldn't stem the challenges facing the official campaign. In nearly 30 years in Texas politics, Perry never lost an election, making his stumbles on the national stage all the more humbling and remarkable to those who had watched his career. Praise quickly poured in from several other candidates, including Mark Rubio, Lindsey Graham, Jeb Bush, and Rick Santorum. Governor Perry has dedicated his entire life to his family, friends, and Jesus Christ, read Rubio's statement. Now, you can read the rest of that on Politico. You can also find it as Rick Perry drops out on Drudge. We have Bush poll numbers. This one was on the 7th. And on the 7th, article out of truththemedia.com, Bush poll numbers plummet to single digits in Iowa and New Hampshire. And Rand Paul, even though it seems like his campaign has died, it really hasn't. He's really been, I think, more active than most candidates out there, other than Trump getting his media exposure. And then, even though Rand Paul has a problem with Donald Trump, this one that was out of truththemedia.com too, Rand Paul comes to Donald Trump's defense over foreign policy gaffe. It says here in a clip from last Friday's episode of the Michael Smerconish program, heard below, Kentucky Senator and 2016 Republican presidential candidate Rand Paul turned down an opportunity to attack Donald Trump and instead criticized the foreign policy questions that Hewitt asked Trump on the radio last week. For context, on last Thursday's episode of the Hewitt Show, Hewitt asked Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump about Iran's Quds force, which Trump confused for the Middle Eastern ethnic group, the Kurds. Hewitt, who has been tapped as a moderator for CNN's September 16 Republican presidential debate, also quizzed Trump on the names of the leaders of several terrorist groups, prompting the billionaire real estate investor to admit that he had not studied them yet. Following the interview, Trump blasted Hewitt on Twitter, accusing him of asking gotcha questions. Michael Smirkanish asked Rand Paul, do you think it's a gotcha question if a presidential candidate is asked whether he or she knows the difference between the Quds and the Kurds? Senator Paul, who reportedly wears a hearing aid, said that he is not big on defending Donald Trump by any means, but that it can be sometimes hard to hear the difference between Quads and Kurds. Paul took issue with how Hewitt asked Trump to identify a list of terrorist leaders by name. I also do think that running through a list of every different Arabic name and asking somebody to respond to them is maybe a little bit of a game of gotcha, said Paul. Senator Paul added, but I do think knowing the difference between Hamas and Hezbollah, knowing the difference between Shiites and Sunnis, and knowing a little bit of the history or a significant amount of the history of what's going on in the Middle East is important for our next leader. Paul concluded, but some people do like to play games with names, and it's a lot easier if you are prepared for the interview on one side and you know all the names and you have them in front of you on a piece of paper versus surprising people with the names. So, like I say, it's not into defending Donald Trump, or I'm not into defending Donald Trump, and you won't find it very often, but I do think some interviewees do like to play this game. And then, I think Rand Paul will be able to weather it. I really think that he's willing to stick it out. And I read an article on a previous broadcast that he's been playing the delicate game. And there's still a lot of Ron Paul people in that system that are going to probably come out for Rand Paul. Okay, coming in the second hour, I'm going to get into another government issuing about sovereign citizens and anti-government people to HUD employees. And I brought you a story of my own that I'm talking to a property tax assessor type guy that works for the county. Well, not my county, but a nearby county. I'm talking about I forget if it was FBI. I can't remember. I would have to ask him again. But coming down and giving a training about and warning to all the employees about sovereign citizens and anti-government people. And he was telling me about it and kind of warning me about, they're going around talking about this to county and city employees. So we have another one of those out. I got a few other things that I'm going to cover here, but there is a clip here I want to play before I get into all that. Just give me a second here. Try to get this to load up. Give me a second. Sorry, guys. Hate when this happens. Hopefully this will work here. Being 9/11, I wanted to kind of cover that a little bit. So I had one here from We Are Change 14 years later, uniting to put out the fires of 9/11. It's a pretty short clip, so.
Years ago, our lives were changed. Still a group of committed individuals who are trying to bring it back. What you're looking at right now is actually an advertisement by architects and engineers directly targeting David Sanger, a New York Times chief correspondent who made those statements about 9/11. And we are right now outside the New York Times building with Richard Gage of Architects and Engineers, with Eric Lawyer, with Firefighters for 9/11 Truth and Unity. Those individuals who are trying to reassess everything that happened to bring back things to normal, because obviously after 9/11, everything has changed. Now, Richard, tell us about this advertisement that is right outside the New York Times, right going after a New York Times journalist. Yeah. What's going on?
This is the chief Washington correspondent for the New York Times, David Sanger, who says we've not found any evidence so far to suggest that building collapses were caused by anything other than the airplanes. Well, clearly he hasn't been looking, because we've been after him for years. And so here it is, the towers blowing up right in front of him, visually apparent, streaming laterally ejected structural steel sections, 60 miles an hour laterally landing 600 feet in every direction, trailed by thick cloud plumes. So we've got to have somebody from some mainstream media, why not David Sanger himself, who claims ignorance but is obviously ignoring everything we've been telling him about near freefall descent, symmetry, total pulverized concrete, explosive hurling of structural steel, molten metal, isolated explosive ejections, traces of incendiaries, thermite, an incendiary used by the military to cut through steel like a hot knife through butter, and reports of explosions from 156 first responders, not unlike Eric Lawyer of Firefighters for 9/11 Truth and Unity.
Yep. And now many people need to know this. Richard Gage has founded a very important organization of professional architects and engineers that question the official version of events behind 9/11. He has done a tremendous amount of work throughout the years. Eric and Richard are doing a lot of amazing, important events right now here in New York City, just trying to raise the consciousness, just trying to make people think about a little bit about that important day. But what's the latest? How many new architects and engineers are on board who are pushing for, the truth behind that fateful day?
Now we have 2,300 architects and engineers, all demanding a new investigation. 200 firefighters demanding a new investigation. We've actually made a film, Eric and I, and together on the platform, we're now talking about the gross abuse of preservation of evidence, reporting all of the evidence found at the crime scene and not burying any of it, or explosive testimony omitted by the NIST report. So we put all this, Eric and I, together into Firefighters, Architects, and Engineers Expose 9/11 Myths, Friday, September 11th tonight, 7 p.m., the world premiere right here. And tomorrow there's many other speakers all day at the same event, all-day symposium, INN World Report hosted symposium tomorrow.
Now, I wanted to ask you guys, how do we move forward? It's been 14 years already. What is your thoughts? What is your process, especially with the organization and everything that you've been doing here as well?
Thank you, Luke. I stepped back in because, almost 5 years ago is when I stepped out. And I stepped out for a lot of different reasons. And I realized the approach I had wasn't working. So I've spent the last almost 4.5 years reanalyzing and coming up with a new approach. And what that is, it's just like a fire department. fire departments, it's very important to alert people that there's a fire, but really the focus needs to be on putting that fire out once we know. Architects and engineers and We Are Change has done an incredible job letting people know the world's on fire, and that's what I'm here for now with a new piece to help. How do we apply the fire department model to start putting these out? And what that looks like is what I'm calling a unity department. So we have our fire departments to put out metaphoric or physical fires. We need unity departments to put out our metaphorical fires. And it's looking like Colorado, actually, with We Are Change and a few other groups there sponsoring this. It looks like that might be the location for the first community, the local level community unity department. And that's where my primary focus will be. And our website's there for people to look at to see the NFPA versus what the NFPA is, the National Fire Protection Association. 921 is the guidebook, and it's the national standards on how an investigation should be done. And NIST, and what we do is we just make visible what NIST actually did. And they did not follow the national standards, the basic routine procedures. They actually didn't even use any physical evidence in their investigation for World Trade Center 7, which was the first 47-story, any high-rise that ever collapsed from fire. And that was what they ruled it. So we're here to make that visible, but our focus will be on unity departments, a worldwide unity service. And that's where we're inviting people in now. They can go to our website, and if you're interested in this, it's in the very early phases, and when we're ready for the next step, if you let us know you want to participate, we'll let you know what it's going to look like.
Now, there's many, many forces who are against anyone even just raising questions to try to find out what really happened on that day so we could actually prevent it, which makes common sense in the first place. There's government institutions, there's scientific institutions, there's mainstream media institutions. All of the higher echelons are all interconnected within each other, who are all covering up just a huge, huge crime that has happened on that day. But I don't know if you guys believe this, but the only thing that could ever stop truth is if individuals stop speaking it. And I'm very happy for both of you guys who are speaking it. Is there anything else that you guys want to say?
Thanks, Luke. This is the crime of the century, and they've gotten away with it so far. But there's a growing number of 9/11 truth activists, growing by millions every year. So we're asking everybody to do something. Send the AE911truth.org link out to every architect, engineer you can find. Send the firefighters for 911truthandunity.org link to every firefighter, and let people know the truth so that they have a chance to wake up from the programming that we have been instilled with that says conspiracy theory if you don't see it on CNN.
Sure. And my last piece is no matter who you believe did it, whether you're a 9/11 truther or not, what's clear is we have metaphorical fires going on. We see them everywhere, so we need to set aside our differences. Just like if our neighbor's house was on fire, we wouldn't argue over who did it, how they started it before we'd help them. So we're inviting people in to start putting these fires out together with more love and compassion in our communities, and if you want to help, we'd love the help. Thank you.
Coming together, speaking the truth, not being afraid to actually voice your opinions is extremely important right now, and the only thing that's going to stop us is our own silence. So don't be silenced. YouTube will, of course, down throttle this video, demonetize this video. Make sure an independent journalist like myself won't be able to sustain and live doing this, but I don't care. The truth is stronger than anything else, so do not forget to share this video with your friends. Let people know that we are not silent. We are not giving up. The truth is more important than anything else. Thank you again so much for watching.
Luke Radowski, We Are Change. We Are Change on YouTube, wearechange.org. And give me a second here. Trying to get back to the information here. Sorry. 9/11 Truth, or architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. Go check them out. I was trying to get the link here, but it's not showing me. Okay. Now, again, I have to wait for this to load. I heard a lot of hoopla about something happening on 9/11. Well, I've heard a lot more talk, though, about things happening around the 20th, 23rd. I have an article here. It's just taking forever to load. Don't know why. Says here, right before 9/11, Wall Street made highly suspicious trades. The mainstream media initially blew the whistle on the highly suspicious, aggressive surges of the trading of put options, basically a bet that the stock will go down. On American Airlines and United Airlines just before the 9/11 tragedy, and they have 3 clips here. One is 9/11 Prophets of Doom, and then 9/11 Smoking Gun, Who Funded the Terrorists. And let me see how long this clip is. Yeah, it's only 5 minutes. I thought so.
Rand Paul has joined the fight.
Okay. Now, we want to know who funded the terrorists. There's been a lot of talk about these 23 pages or 28 pages that they want to declassify and put out there, that many that have seen these say that it will blow the door open on all this and who's really involved. And I have a clip here from InfoWars real quick. I'm going to play that and then we can get into this other article.
Rand Paul has joined the fight to get the federal government to release the missing 28 pages of the official 9/11 Commission report. And that was blocked and kept secret by the Bush administration. And that's because they know full well that the documents will prove once and for all that the Saudi Arabian government was directly involved in the attacks on September 11th. So very embarrassing, not to mention treasonous by George Bush and Dick Cheney, who are both implicated here in a massive cover-up. And remember, it was George W. Bush himself, the hypocrite, who had this to say about anyone harboring terrorists.
Every nation in every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
Oh, is that right, Georgie? It's going to be like that, huh? You're either with us or you are with the terrorist. Well, you're the one, George W., who vacations with the Saudi royal family. And you're also the one who used to vacation with the bin Laden family. You're also going to find yourself in prison if these documents ever see the light of day.
This sort of shocked me when you read it. As I read it, and we all had our own experience, I had to stop every couple pages and just sort of absorb and try to rearrange my understanding of history for the past 13 years and the years leading up to that. It challenges you to rethink everything. And so I think the whole country needs to go through that.
That's right. These brave gentlemen have seen the 28 pages and they want the documents released. You heard Representative Thomas Massey say right there that it will challenge you to rethink everything. Whatever is in those documents is going to change world history.
I want those documents declassified. I'm embarrassed to be associated with a work product that is secret.
But wait, there's more. Former Senator Bob Graham, who also co-chaired the joint Senate-House investigation into the September 11th attacks, he says, I am convinced that there was a direct line between at least some of the terrorists who carried out the September 11th attacks and the government of Saudi Arabia. He called it a smoking gun. And he went on to say the reason for this cover-up goes right up to the White House. Meanwhile, here's what they are saying in the New York Post. The Saudis deny any role in 9/11, but the CIA in one memo reportedly found incontrovertible evidence that Saudi government officials, not just wealthy Saudi hardliners, but high-level diplomats and intelligence officers employed by the kingdom, helped the hijackers both financially and logistically. And if the Saudi government did indeed help finance and train the hijackers, well, that, my friends, that is an act of war. And I'm so glad to see the truth finally beginning to surface. Senator Rand Paul has just introduced legislation called the Transparency for the Families of 9/11 Act. And that would force the Obama administration to release the 28 pages.
Over a decade ago, a bipartisan congressional committee investigated the 9/11 attacks and wrote a report. 28 pages from that report have never been released to the public. We're here today to call for a release of those 28 pages. The survivors, civilian heroes, and families of the victims of September 11 terrorist attacks, some of whom are here today, deserve the full truth.
We cannot let page after page of blanked out documents be obscured behind a veil, leading these families to wonder if there is additional information surrounding these horrible acts.
So there you have it. Rand Paul thinks that we all have the right and that the 9/11 victims' families have the right to see what's in those documents, no matter how embarrassing or how incriminating it might be to George W. Bush. So what do you say there, W? Why don't you let us see what's in those 28 pages? After all, you've got nothing to hide, right? I mean, either you are with us or you're with the terrorists.
Again, that was a InfoWars report. Okay. Now, Clinton's, again, she's had a problem in this campaign with this whole staffer being caught by O'Keefe coming out. Well, you know, you look at things like what happened 9/11, and you look at things being concealed about Benghazi, about her emails. All these people are using your money and your blood, sweat, and tears to conquer the world and gain power. That's really what it comes down to. And the gist of things, that is what it comes down to. And the Clinton campaign staffer knowingly violates election laws is title of the article. You can actually find the clip and everything that O'Keefe has there at Infowars.com and a lot of other websites. Drudge, you can find it on. Russia is moving into Syria has also warned the U.S. to, work with us or, expect unintended consequences if you're not willing to work with us. The problem with Russia is willing to help Assad and the government there regain control and establish peace once again. And the U.S. is funding the rebels, which ultimately is also funding ISIS. But NATO caught surprise. This out of defense1.com. Got from Drudge. NATO caught surprised by Russia's move into Syria. When Russia sent military forces into Syria last weekend, it caught NATO by surprise and proved that its members can neither stay ahead of threats nor even decide which ones are the most pressing, the alliance's intelligence director said. It says here, we are keeping up with threats. Absolutely not, said U.S. Navy Rear Admiral Brett Heimbinger something. Thursday, the demands for intelligence to accurately deal with some of these crises is clearly insufficient. Heimberger's latest frustration from an alliance perspective, what Russia is doing and the ability of Russia to surprise us on a very constant basis. We were able to get some warning, but did not see from a strategic perspective that one necessarily coming until just a couple of days ago, he said, speaking at the Intelligence and National Security Summit in Washington, D.C. Defense One is a media sponsor of the event, which is held by AFCEA International and the Intelligence and National Security Alliance, or INSA. On the main stage later, Defense Intelligence Agency Director Lieutenant General Vincent Stewart confirmed media reports that Russian forces have moved into Syria, but he adds CIA Director John Brennan said they were yet unclear as to their makeup or purpose. Brennan spoke calmly of the development and was quick to say that throughout the Syrian conflict, Russia has remained cooperative on other security areas, including the spread of terrorists outside of the region. I and others have spoken to our Russian counterparts about our shared concerns, he said. As for NATO, Heimberger described the alliance divided. Its Baltic and Eastern members worry more about Russia, while Southern members are more concerned about Islamic State, whose growth is exponentially higher than what they anticipated. In fact, we are now in a situation where, as an alliance, we can't even come up with a coordinated threat assessment overall, because both groups want their concerns to take priority, he said. One problem, Heimberger said, is there are not enough intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance assets to go around. We have a woeful shortage of ISR. When we go to ask the nations to contribute, it's all committed and just not available. It may turn out two conflicts become one, with Russia's move into Syria and the flow of refugees from the Middle East. My southern flank is the Turkish border, and I'm very concerned that something we're going to have to address in the near term, he said. And that was out of defense1.com. Find that Drudge Report. And then there's another one on Drudge that's titled Moscow Tells Washington Talk to Us or Risk Unintended Incidences. Okay. Now, we kind of look at what our nation is turning into. And a lot of people, every generation kind of gets to that point where we kind of see changes and we don't like what we see. But what I'm seeing more of is the amount of generation, even the young people coming up, look at our nation and go, "This is just crap. I don't even want to try." You know, we have college students going into debt coming out of school, not able to find a job. Everybody has a damn business degree, and it means almost absolutely nothing. Even though you do get some businesses, well, you have to have a business degree. Why do you have to have a business degree? Because everyone has a business degree. Therefore, they want you to have some type of degree just to say that you have one. That and some of them, I think, also kind of have that, I had to go through it, so do you type of attitude. I've seen that from a few people. Now, if I can find this one here. I kind of want to point out, how far things are going, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to find the clip. I think the first one got removed. I don't have the clip here. Let me see if I can find an article on it. Might be able to find it here. I've seen it somewhere. Okay, I have an article here. This one out of Reason.com. Teen boy kissed girl on air. Now he faces assault charges. Pikesville, Maryland. 13-year-old boy will be charged with second-degree assault for kissing a 14-year-old girl on a dare. The assault happened at Pikesville Middle School on Friday. Police were called to the scene. School officials took a report regarding a 13-year-old boy who kissed a 14-year-old girl during school hours. The unwanted kiss was allegedly the result of a dare made by students. Police confirmed that the boy is now facing a second-degree assault charge as a juvenile. No one was injured during the incident, police say, and disciplinary actions related to suspension and expulsion will be handled by the school system. No one was injured. Is that really surprising? It's of course true that every 14-year-old has the right not to be kissed. I'm not saying the boy's transgressions should go unpunished. What I'm saying is this: he should not be charged with assault. He's 13. 13-year-olds do stupid stuff, they screw up, and when the consequences of their actions are as minor as this, it's better to reprimand them in a manner that does not involve the criminal justice system. By all means, give this kid detention, make him apologize to the girl, tell his parents to teach him better manners, but don't charge him with assault. That could be far greater crime than a stolen kiss. You know, that's one example of where this is really heading. We have a society where normal human interactions are crimes. They become straight out crimes in society today. And where are we going to end up in 10 years with all the political correctness, the gender bending ideology, the youth being taught this Common Core that basically is made to, I think, make parents look stupid in the eyes of the children, because how they are doing it makes no sense. Definitely how we were taught as kids. It just kind of doesn't compute. Like, why would you do all this? 15 minus 5. Well, if you take 10 and put that to the side, you take that 5 minus 5, that's 0, and then you add the 10 back in, so the answer is 10. Like, what? You know, 16 minus 5. Well, if you take the 10 out of the 16, then you have 6, and you take 6 minus 5, and that's 1, then you add the 10 back. And if you don't answer the question in that way, it's wrong. Even if you go, I know what 16 minus 5 is. It's 11. You go 16 minus 5 equals 11. Nope, that's wrong. And so parents kind of, don't always understand that. Parents that work long hours don't really have the chance to sit down and basically comprehend it that way themselves. They kind of get stuck where they don't know exactly how to help. And it seems to be getting worse. Now, we have other issues going on, kind of like we have the police brutality, the corruption, and basically the extortion of the citizenry, the populace, and the cops being used as thugs. I'm trying to find this one. Give me a second here. Let me see if I can find this somewhere else. but we have the police brutality. We have this going on. Then we have the other side of it where they're just going, just assassinate these people, execute them, hate white cops, hate white people. It's all their fault. And we really don't have the two that are coming together to really address the actual issues. And what is going on here? Sorry. We have the cops being used as thugs. And we seen what happened at the Bunny Ranch. And I have one here where I can't find the article now, but basically about the land grab that the U.S. Air Force is basically trying to kick these people that their families have basically benefited off this land and grew this area to be what it is, and they take that seriously. But well, they want to take the property for national security reasons, and you have the cops being again used as thugs in this situation to try to government will use government thugs, agents, federal agents, to kick these people off the land more than likely, unless, of course, oath keepers come in. You might have a different thing come out of that, and they've done it at the Bundy Ranch, and that's why I like groups like Cop Watch, Cop Block, all those groups, because they've really brought filming cops to a thing, and people are like, body cameras, that'll help. Well, yeah, it shows one side of everything, but it does not show all the cops' actions. And that's where the issue comes into play, where you still need to film the cops. And then now, we have... I'm going to play this one here from Next News Network. New York deploys program to track your driving. And we have all these tracking things going on. We have men spying on you. More programs coming out with that. So much other stuff going on that it's unbelievable where they're taking the tracking technology. Then, of course, on top of it, you have it where they have people willing to put these thermostats, the smart fridge, it's going to be the toaster, the paper towel dispenser before you know it, and track everything you do and use. And make it convenient. I have a list on my phone of what I need when I go to the store. Yeah, but it also will eventually be used to tax you and charge you for overusage for what the government thinks is adequate usage for you. Basically, you're not just paying more for buying more something, you'll be taxed on top of it. You got all this green policing being pushed. You better believe that stuff will be used for that reason. And we see that, the government's not spying on what everybody does on the internet and on their cell phone. oh, we're only collecting metadata. Well, just because you can see pictures and stuff doesn't mean we do that. It's just lie after lie after lie. I'm going to play this short clip here before we get too close to the end of the broadcast. Next News Network. New York City deploys program to track your driving habits.
So, in New York City, an article out of Infowars.com is titled, A Benefit or Big Brother? New York City unveils pilot program to track driving habits. If that's not enough, you got license plate readers out there, you got garbage men spying on you, and now the New York City is going to be spying on your driving habits. The Department of Transportation says it will help fix street problems. That is their excuse. It's going to help the problems on the streets. However, others are calling it Big Brother. Big Brother is watching you. CBS 2's Marcia Kramer reported on Friday that it's a tiny little black box. It's about the size of a pack of gum, and they put it right under the steering wheel. And it's basically going to allow city officials under this program, it's called Drive Smart, to collect and access data about how you drive, if you drive like a maniac or if you're just a slowpoke. But how is that really going to benefit? How is that going to benefit people in New York City because they know how you drive? I fail to see the connection here. CBS 2's political reporter went ahead and broke this story on Friday, and it says here that it can tell the force of hard stopping or hard acceleration and a hard turn. This comes from the senior project manager, Alex Keating. So the driver as well as the service provider are able to look at speeds, hard braking events, time of day, and the basic GPS. You like that? How does that make you feel? I mean, can we please stop this insanity? Everywhere we turn, NSA spying, Seattle Wi-Fi hotspots, garbage trucks tracking you, license plate readers. I mean, smartphones tracking you. Everywhere we go, we are being tracked, monitored, added to databases. Says here, how they're going to use the information. City officials say they'll use the information. Where'd it go? City officials say they'll use the information to make the streets safer, but drivers can also allow various Department of Transportation partners to use the information. Allstate, for example, will give you insurance discounts of 10 to 30%, and Metropia will get you home faster with less congested routes. And it's all hooked up to your smartphone. Yeah. Okay, so you're going to save money on your car insurance by switching to the the spy program. Security expert Manny Gomez said there are many reasons to just say no to this program. For instance, the danger of hacking. Anything is hackable, as we've already seen. Sony was hacked, the U.S. government was hacked, so clearly the city of New York could be hacked, and this information could easily become public. That's a great point he's raising. Your traffic patterns, your GPS location, like we just saw, the city of Boston. What happened with all that information? Maintained by a third-party, irresponsible Canadian company, left online for the world to see. So, in this very instance, the same exact situation could happen. The information could be posted online. It could be hacked. And now your whereabouts, your daily habits of transit to and from work, boom, available for everyone to see. Stalkers, murderers, criminals, if they want to get it, they can get it. And it looks like New York City is about to hand it to them. Gomez goes on to question whether the city could use the information against people. And the Department of Transportation officials say, oh no, it's never going to happen. No, we're not going to use this information against you. If you're speeding and we have a record of it, don't worry. We're not going to give you a ticket. But that's how it always starts. That's how it always begins. The incrementalism of the police state, the surveillance state. Here, just put this little device in your car. We're going to give you a discount on your insurance. We're going to get you where you want to go faster. Meanwhile, we're going to store this information off to the side, and then we'll go ahead and we'll, down the road, oh, remember those devices that we installed in all those New Yorkers' cars? Guess what? We'll pass a law stating that we can now prosecute you if you are going over the speed limit, or if we detect potential reckless behavior in a vehicle. Hard turning, fast acceleration. That's how it starts. Once the power is handed over for your convenience, it is only taken advantage of. What do you think? Do you think that New York will take advantage of this? Do you think this is a good thing? Is this something that you would use? Leave your comments below. Like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. That is how we grow.
Next News Network on YouTube. And their address here, give me a second, is nextnewsnetwork.com. I think that was a short link, but nextnewsnetwork.com will get you there too. Okay. We are coming up towards the end of the broadcast. There was another article I did want to cover. If I can find it here before we get too into this. Don't freeze up here. Okay, this one was the government issue sovereign citizens warning to HUD employees. Said here on Tuesday, the Department of House and Urban Development issued a warning to its employees and contractors concerning scams and confrontations with anti-government sovereign citizens who are reportedly illegally occupying federal housing. The District Sentinel wrote, the alert, which came from HUD's Office of Inspector General, alleged that sovereign citizens are increasingly taking advantage of state laws that aim to redistribute department-owned properties. The Federal Bureau of Investigation and HUD, OIG, have noticed a resurgence of sovereign citizen fraud in HUD programs. The IG said, stating that over the last 4 years, HUD has tallied 20 prosecutions and convictions related to sovereign citizen scams, recovering more than $17 million. Essentially, the report claims that sovereign citizens are illegally deeding themselves HUD real estate, installing alarms, and locking out the authorities. The report goes on to state that individuals might be involved in subsidized Section 8 housing programs and foreclosure rescue schemes. The report states that unlike other squatters, sovereign citizens may retaliate if you confront them. The report also warns employees that engaging in verbal arguments could spiral into violent confrontation. One issue with these types of reports is that this movement of so-called sovereign citizens is not a movement at all, but rather a loose group of individuals who have similar but often conflicting beliefs. A bulletin gives the description of sovereign citizens. Sovereign citizen groups are loose associations of anti-government extremists who do not recognize the federal government. They believe that they are separate or sovereign from the United States and are exempt from federal, state, and local laws and tax systems. They believe the country sheriff is the supreme law enforcement officer in the land, and the county clerks or registrars are the only legitimate elected officials. They subscribe to a belief in common law and their right to arrest or sue employees of the illegitimate government. They are known for filing nuisance lawsuits or liens against individuals who try to stop their schemes, which have involved in lender credit card, tax, and loan frauds. They make their own driver's license and license plates and sometimes attempt to form their own parallel institutions of government. Sovereign citizen encounters with law enforcement and government personnel frequently become confrontational and sometimes turn violent. The FBI's bulletin, Sovereign Citizens, an Introduction for Law Enforcement, elaborates upon the description. Sovereign citizens believe the USG, United States government, is illegitimate and has drifted away from the true intent of the Constitution. As a result, the USG is not perceived to be acting in the interest of the American people. These groups generally do not adhere to federal, state, or local laws. They believe the U.S. federal reverse system, reserve is what that should have said. The Treasury Department and banking systems are illegitimate. According to the bulletin, many users of this website might be considered a sovereign citizen for believing that federal reserve is illegitimate or for refusing to support the federal government. However, the FBI bulletin does note these activities may also be indicative of lawful innocent conduct, including rights protected under the United States Constitution. But then they'll say constitutionalists are bad. And thus, these indicators should be considered in the context of other suspicious behavior and the totality of the circumstances in which they are observed or reported. Still, even with that caveat, there is a dangerous trend for the U.S. government to demonize legal behavior while tying it to extremist viewpoints, such as those who identify as sovereigns or free men and choose to commit violence. Of course, this comparison completely ignores the millions of liberty lovers who believe similar ideas, yet never speak of violence. The HUD bulletin goes on to offer indicators of possible sovereign citizens. These include names spelled in all capital letters, personal seals, stamps, or thumbprints in red ink, references to the Bible and the Constitution of the United States. Also included in the bulletin is an example of a fraudulent claim filed by a so-called sovereign citizen, which highlights the use of silver dollars. Similar to the Missouri Information Analysis Center, MIAC report, and other Department of Homeland Security documents. The latest bulletin may have many Americans asking why constitutionally protected behavior and thought is being targeted. The report includes images of flags that are claimed to be associated with sovereign citizens, including a Title IV flag and the flag known as the Gadsden flag, which is often associated with the American Revolution. However, the Gadsden flag has a ribbon above it that reads the New Minutemen. A quick search for the Title IV flag does indeed lead to a website which professes the rhetoric discussed by the government, but there are no obvious calls for violence. A search for the New Minutemen Gadsden flag leads to a website where a man claims ownership of the flag. He describes the flag as one that I created by combining the best attributes of the Culpeper and the Gadsden flags. The Culpeper Minutemen are well known for fighting in the American Revolution. Once again, a search for the website does not reveal any calls for violence or even a mention of sovereign citizens. The site is apparently owned by a retired firefighter who will likely be surprised to find out that his flag is included in government warning about extremist violence. Truth and Media Update spoke with the creator of Minutemen Gadsden flag, Charles Mineta, a 60-year-old retired firefighter in 9/11 first responder. Says the flag was made on my computer and was just to see if I could do it. It was creative art, nothing more. I am 100% behind our government, and I love the United States. I would never take up arms against our military or our police. I love and have the utmost respect for all of them. In fact, 3 of my children are U.S. Marines and have a few good times that are, or few good friends that are police officers, and they all have seen this image and see no threat from my creation. These types of reports are part of a dangerous trend where the U.S. government discourages or even criminalizes legally protected behavior. While this new bulletin from the HUD may be of some value, also creates a state of paranoia where police and government agents are constantly on the lookout for individuals who dare express their concerns with or outright opposition to government. Again, that one from truthandmedia.com, and that's just another, example. We are at the end of the broadcast. Don't forget to check out the UCY store, ucy.tv. Click the UCY store tab. It's through Amazon, and it helps support this network at the same time. Same great deals from Amazon.com. UCY.tv, UCY store tab. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned here on UCY.